You know what's quietly wrecking your life more than the bad days, bad news, or bad luck? Trying to control everything, controlling what they think, how they act, when it happens, if it happens. You're out here holding the steering wheel of a car that's already in autopilot, and the worst part, you don't even realize your hands are shaking. Control looks responsible, smart, strong, but under the surface, it's pure tension. You're not in charge. You're in survival mode, rehearsing outcomes like life is a courtroom and you're on trial. Every plan is a safety net. Every silence is a threat. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The more you try to manage everything, the more it manages you, and the more peace you lose. So what if happiness doesn't come from getting it all right? What if it comes from letting it all go? Not recklessly, but precisely. You don't need to burn it all down. Just stop holding everything up. You've been calling it strength, but it's stress. You've been calling it control, but it's fear in disguise. And once you start seeing it clearly, you won't be able to go back. Because the less you try to control, the happier you get. And it starts right now. Keep watching. 1. Control is the mind's favorite illusion. Most people live with this deep illusion that they're steering the wheel of life, that they've got control over people, outcomes, and how things unfold. But the truth? Control is fear wearing a confident smile. It's the ego saying, if I don't manage this, everything will fall apart. But ask yourself, has controlling ever brought you real peace, or just temporary relief followed by more tension? They plan every step, anticipate every word in a conversation, rehearse comebacks to arguments that may never happen. It's a mental gymnastics routine that leaves the soul exhausted. And ironically, the more they try to control, the more out of control they feel. It's like trying to hold water with clenched fists. The moment you try to own it all, life slips right through your fingers. Take someone who constantly refreshes their inbox, thinking they can will the next opportunity into existence, or the parent who micromanages their kids' every step, thinking it'll guarantee a good life. What they don't see is that control isn't security, it's a prison. The key isn't in doing more, it's in trusting more. Control tightens, surrender softens. And in that softness, a different kind of power begins to awaken. But here's where things get tricky. The mind doesn't like hearing this. It resists, argues, justifies. Yeah, but what if I don't do anything? Won't things fall apart? And this is where suffering begins, not from what's happening, but from what we think should be happening instead. And once this becomes clear, something inside starts to shift. Something that leads directly to the next paradox. 2. The paradox. The tighter you hold, the more you suffer. He tries to plan it all out, every move, every detail, every backup plan. But the more he clings to the outcome, the more frustrated he gets when it doesn't go his way. That's the paradox nobody talks about. The tighter you grip, the more you bleed. Control feels like protection, but it's just disguised resistance. And resistance, that's the root of anxiety, not the cure for it. Look at relationships. Ever seen someone try to fix their partner into a version that suits their script? What they call love becomes a form of emotional hostage-taking. You can't force someone to behave in a way that brings you peace, because peace doesn't come from managing others. It comes from releasing the belief that you have to. That belief, it's what's choking your freedom, not the actual situation. Holding on too tight shows up in subtle ways too. That moment when someone doesn't reply to a message and your mind spirals into 20 narratives. Or when plans change and instead of adjusting, you crash emotionally. The mind panics because the illusion of control cracked, and it exposes how fragile your peace really was. That's when you start realizing maybe peace was never supposed to be held. Maybe it was always supposed to be allowed. It's wild, isn't it? How much pressure we carry trying to prevent discomfort. We call it being responsible, proactive, smart. But underneath, it's just fear. Fear of the unknown, of letting go, of not knowing who we are without the constant mental grip. And when that fear starts to soften, something else begins to emerge, something we've been avoiding all along. 3. Micromanaging. Reality is emotional exhaustion in disguise. He wakes up and the mental tabs are already open, replaying yesterday's conversations, pre-writing today's, predicting next week's outcomes. That's not clarity. That's emotional exhaustion dressed up as preparation. Micromanaging reality is like trying to edit a movie while it's still being filmed. You miss the scene you're in because you're too busy trying to direct the next one. People think they're being productive when they obsess over every detail, but the truth is, they're just tired. Tired of imagining worst-case scenarios, tired of managing how others perceive them, tired of scripting every encounter. It's like living in a constant state of performance, always tweaking lines no one else even remembers. And still, they wonder why peace never arrives. It's not because life's too chaotic, it's because their mind won't stop directing. You're not the director, you're the screen. Life is happening and you're meant to witness it, not over-polish it until it loses all spontaneity. Try this instead. Choose one moment today to stop managing and start observing. Let a conversation flow without fixing it. Let silence be awkward. Let plans shift without interpreting it as failure. That's not laziness, it's presence. And presence brings a flavor of peace control never could. But here's the twist. When someone finally gets tired of managing it all, they don't collapse. They begin to see clearly. They realize there's a difference between action and obsession, between effort and control. And when that line becomes visible, so does something else, something that feels a little like precision, but without the pressure. 4. Letting go isn't weakness. It's inner precision. People think letting go means giving up, like surrender is some form of failure. But real surrender is sharp. It's not sloppy, it's precise. It means you've looked at the situation, seen what's yours to carry and what isn't, and you choose peace over proving something. That kind of clarity? It's not weakness, it's wisdom wrapped in restraint. Think of it like this: a skilled archer doesn't control the wind. They align with it. They aim, breathe, release. Letting go is the release. It's knowing when enough is enough, when more effort turns into self-sabotage. Whether it's a toxic conversation, a job that's draining you, or the need to always be right, sometimes mastery is choosing silence over struggle. There's a freedom that comes when you stop picking up every rope someone throws at you. Not every challenge is yours to wrestle. You're not a firefighter for everyone's emotional flames. Practice this. The next time someone baits you into a fight, pause, breathe, ask, is this mine? If it isn't, walk away. That's not weakness, that's self-respect. And funny enough, the moment you stop jumping into every storm, you realize how many of them weren't even storms to begin with. Just noise, just distractions. And as that noise fades, a new signal becomes clearer, one you've probably ignored for years, a signal that leads straight into power, but not the kind you were taught to chase. 5. Surrender is where power actually begins. At some point, he realizes that all the effort to control how he's seen, how things unfold, or what might go wrong, it's costing more than it's giving. The truth sneaks in quietly. The more he surrenders, the more he sees, not just with his eyes, but with a depth that only shows up when the noise drops. That's when real power begins, not from force, but from flow. Letting go of control doesn't mean you disappear. It means you show up differently, calm, clear, unshakable. It's the difference between the guy who reacts to everything and the one who observes before moving. One's a puppet, the other's a presence. The less you try to control the world, the more control you gain over yourself. And that, ironically, changes how the world responds to you. Let's say your plan falls apart today. The meeting gets cancelled. Someone doesn't show. The old you spirals. But now, you pause. You adapt. You see what's still possible instead of mourning what didn't go your way. That's not passivity. That's upgraded awareness. That's power born from surrender, not strategy. And people feel it, even if they don't understand it. But here's what most never realize. The real battle was never outside. It was never about traffic or emails or what she said. It was always about how much you needed to control those things to feel safe. And once you start seeing that, well, that fear starts looking a lot like a trap you've been living inside for way too long. 6. The fear beneath control. If I don't handle it, I'll lose everything. There's a quiet panic that hides behind control. A whisper that says, if I let go, it'll all fall apart. That fear isn't loud, but it's heavy. It convinces people to grip tighter, to overthink, to overperform. But here's the thing, most of the time, what you're protecting isn't peace. It's a version of yourself built on survival, not truth. And survival isn't freedom, it's just a more polished kind of fear. He works late not because he has to, but because he's afraid of being seen as replaceable. She says yes to things she hates just to avoid being disliked. This isn't control, it's a transaction with fear. A belief that if you do the right dance, life won't hurt you. But life still does what it does. And the truth, the more you try to manage pain, the more painful it becomes. Start small. Let the email sit in the inbox. Let someone else lead the conversation. Let your kid make a mistake. Watch how uncomfortable it feels at first. That discomfort, it's your freedom stretching its legs. It's your nervous system realizing it doesn't have to carry everything anymore. That's not neglect. That's recalibration. That's giving yourself permission to live without the leash of fear. But the ego hates that kind of freedom. It fights back. It says, you're being irresponsible. You're slipping. But really, you're stepping into something quieter, more rooted. A different definition of power. One that doesn't depend on approval, perfection, or control. And the more you taste it, the less you'll settle for what you used to call peace. Because maybe that wasn't peace at all. Maybe that was just suppression in disguise. 7. Emotional control is not peace, it's suppression. He used to think staying calm meant he was strong, that if he could just not react, not cry, not show too much, he'd be winning. But all he was really doing was bottling things up until they turned into quiet explosions. Emotional control isn't peace, it's pressure. And pressure eventually leaks. The truth is, peace isn't the absence of feeling. It's the freedom to feel without being ruled by it. When you're taught that emotions are a weakness, you start to wear masks. You smile when you're breaking inside. You nod when you disagree. You stay quiet when your soul wants to scream. And over time, that inner censorship becomes a habit. But real peace, it doesn't require pretending. It invites honesty, with yourself first, then others. It's not loud, but it's real. Here's a shift worth trying. Next time you feel triggered, don't shut it down. Don't try to stay strong in that old way. Instead, ask yourself, what part of me is reacting? Is it a wound? A fear? A story I've believed for too long? Journaling helps. So does sitting still, hand on heart, and naming the feeling out loud. You don't need to fix it. Just witness it. That's how it loses power. But this kind of presence, it's unfamiliar. At first, it might even feel messy. You're not in control the way you used to be. But you're also not controlled by the old patterns. That's the line you start to walk. And as you keep walking it, something beautiful starts happening. Not numbness, not drama, but a kind of flow. The kind that doesn't need a script. 8. The happiest people aren't in control. They're in flow. They're the ones who smile when things don't go as planned, who adapt, adjust, pivot, without losing themselves in the process. It's not that their lives are perfect. It's that they've stopped fighting what they can't fix. They've quit playing chess with the universe. Instead of managing every detail, they've learned how to move with the moment. That's not passivity. That's intelligence guided by surrender. Control feels like power, but it's actually resistance, and resistance creates friction. Flow, on the other hand, is what happens when you stop needing everything to go your way. You trust timing. You accept delay without assigning meaning to it. You allow silence without trying to fill it. That's when you realize freedom doesn't feel like being in charge. It feels like being at peace with not knowing. Try it next time plans fall through. Instead of scrambling to force a backup, breathe. Ask, what's life trying to show me right now? That simple question shifts everything. It puts you in relationship with the present, not in conflict with it. Happiness isn't the result of control, it's the result of connection. And connection only happens when you're not too busy managing the narrative. And slowly, you stop needing the high of control. You stop chasing the dopamine of being right, being liked, being certain. You start feeling something subtler, more grounded, something that doesn't need validation to exist. Call it peace, call it awareness, or maybe just call it coming home. Either way, it begins where control ends.